on Gangs of London. I've got to say congratulations. This is an absolutely amazing show.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased it's reached your shores. Been looking forward to that happening.
Oh, look, there are so many people here that are so excited about it because, of course, the raid, Australia was one of the first countries where the raid really took off. So a lot of people are dying to see this show. So I have to ask, how did you become involved with the show, and how did that relationship first start with Gareth?
Yeah, it's quite a nice little story. So I was, a few years ago, I was putting together a new version of The Crow. The Brandon Lee movie, The Crow. I was doing a new version of that, and I was preparing to shoot, and I knew of Gareth's work, and I was thinking, if I'm going to do a new Crow, it's got to kind of compete with, modern day superhero movies and movies like The Raid in terms of the action, and so I thought I'd call him up, and Gareth and I sort of mutually followed each other on Instagram, and just as sort of film nerds, sharing their favourite movies and Blu-rays and things that we'd bought. So I got in touch with him, and we met up. I got in touch to pick his brains about action, and he told me, this is a few years ago, that he was putting together this show, Gangs of London, and would I be up for directing an episode of it. At that time, I didn't think I'd be able to, because I was doing The Crow, and then things went down on The Crow, sadly, and I came back, this was about a year later, and he was getting ready to shoot, so the offer sort of still stood, and he asked if I'd be interested in taking an episode. So I ended up saying yes, and then one episode led to 3 episodes, and then they asked me to do the final episode, and so I ended up sort of staying throughout the whole show for the best part of a year and a half, and really just found it a very kind of new experience, because I hadn't done television, and I hadn't done something as sort of grounded without supernatural creatures, although there are monsters, of course, in Gangs of London in a different sense. So yeah, it was a great kind of collaboration with Gareth, and then we had Xavier Gens as well, and it was sort of 3 genre filmmakers doing TV for the first time.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's that like coming in to direct on a television show? Because I know with The Nun, the law was already set up there from The Conjuring, but what is it like coming into a television show, especially because you came in for episode 3 and 4 originally? What's it like coming into a show where the law is already kind of set up and you've kind of got to work with what's there?
It's just a slightly different sort of headset, I guess. I've done movies where I've sort of developed and co-written them for 8 or 10 years, and then finally get to make, my own original. And then a movie like The Nun was very much a script which had been written, and we went sort of straight into production on. And Gangs was something which was incredibly complex, coming in to absorb the story, which was set over 9, I don't know if it's 10 episodes or 9 over with you guys, because the first episode that Gareth did was like a kind of feature-length one, but it has been split into 2 parts in some places. So,
yeah, it's 9 here, yep.
9, yeah. So yeah, I was brought in to do episodes 2, 3, and 4, and to absorb those 3 scripts, which was a kind of like, each episode's roughly an hour, so it was a bit like 2 feature films worth. But the stories, the characters, the relationships, the alliances, allegiances, and betrayals in the families and the gangs, without spoiling anything, it was a lot to absorb and to really kind of get my head around how to tell the story, because things really kind of kick off in the second episode in terms of the bigger story. I think Gareth's first episode is a fantastic setter, with the predicament of the show, and centres around sort of introducing you to these family members and these gangsters. But then in sort of 2, 3, and 4, it spreads out. So it was it was a trial by fire in a sense. You know, I had to absorb a lot and reread those scripts and then begin just really diving really deep into it to try and make it as balance the sort of authentic details and believability and find sort of cinematic locations, and it was I felt like it was a good sort of test for me to do something different, which I really relished.
Were you already a fan of the genre? Because I had the weird experience when I was at film school. I remember a lecturer talking to me about Goodfellas and The Godfather, and I shocked him by turning around and saying I preferred Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch. And were you already a fan of the genre before you came into this project?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I come from a love of horror, but a class kind of particularly those sort of 70s crime, the kind of golden age of 70s crime genre, really, with the sort of William Friedkins and French Connections and the Godfathers and then the Scorsese movies, Michael Mann's Heat. You know, they're all movies that I loved, but had never kind of gone into that genre, I suppose. So it was a chance to combine that sort of 70s crime genre with the sort of family drama, and then introducing Korean sort of action thrillers, Memories of Murder, Old Boy, I Saw the Devil, you know, Hong Kong action like John Woo movies, Hard Boiled Killer, Tarantino, Paul Verhoeven, you know, kind of like mixing up a lot of mine and I say our favourite kind of genres and directors and bringing them into a sort of contemporary London set crime story. Actually, one of the biggest impacts on me, funnily enough, I think, was Animal Kingdom, the David Michôd film. Joel Edgerton and Guy Pearce and Ben Mendelsohn and Jackie Weaver. I just when I saw that, there was something about that was, you know, had that almost documentary feel. It felt very grounded and very like a real life tale, but it had this great kind of heavy, thematic kind of genre about it in terms of the look, and I think that was a kind of a good one to have in mind for Gangs of London, because it is that duality and that balance of family drama driving it with the emotional, relatable side of things, with this kind of, you know, opportunity for insane action and wildness that we put into Gangs of London.
Yeah. Have you ever had the chance to see the Australian television series Underbelly at all? That was a series that the first season was based on the underworld war that happened here in Melbourne during the 90s, and it was so realistic and so truthful that the police actually stopped it from being released in Victoria because it was going to cause problems with some of the court hearings that was happening. Have you ever had a chance to check out that?
I've not seen that. I've actually not heard of that, so it sounds really interesting. But where can I see that then, if it's been banned already?
Oh no, it eventually came out. It was just that at the time, one of the big godfathers of the Melbourne underworld scenes court case was happening, and they were frightened that the jury was going to watch this show and already go in with a kind of different opinion of what might have happened. So yeah, it's available everywhere now. But did you have to do your own research into some of the gang stuff in London? Yeah. Because I would imagine that would be like what it was here in Melbourne.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, a lot of work was done by the writing team and Gareth, you know, and there was a couple of years of bringing the series together, and before I came on board, so there had been a lot of research done, and, you know, they got various you know, advisors and people to take them out, and the Albanian gang scene and the police, and then when I came on board, I was processing that and going through and asking more questions, and when I needed to, I'd get you know, advice and calls into that stuff. So a lot of the sort of scenes in the first season, you know, are based on, you know, real situations, and then obviously we've flourished on top of them sometimes.
The action sequences in it are so fast-paced, like you would expect from a Gareth Evans production. What were they like to film, and what kind of challenges do they give you as a director?
Well, I mean, speaking for Gareth a little there as well. He's the master of action. I think in the world in a lot of ways, and so that was, one of the big attractions to him putting together a show that did, and it was exciting to come and join a show. I felt like when I decided to come on board, I was always wary of television and wanting to, if I was ever going to do it, to make sure we could somehow bring cinema into television without sounding too pretentious, doing something quite grand scale and with big ambitions. And I think when I knew that Gareth was involved and knowing what his movies are like, I thought, well, if he's going to be able to get away with the kind of stuff he does, then I hopefully can bring some of what I do. And, because we did merge in, like I said, genres of sort of westerns and action and horror within it as well. So with the action, Gareth, in order to pull off this type of action, we do a lot of previs and rehearsals and action design months and months in advance of the actual shooting. Something I'm doing at the moment on the second season. So it's obviously it starts with dreaming of wild action sequences that can be sort of grounded, but also really feel adrenalized and visceral, and you can get. I think that's what you can get when you see his movies. The kind of you're thrilled by them, you're slightly horrified, but you're you can't stop watching them, and they are operatic and they're balletic, but they're also kind of like tough and grounded. So the ingredients that make up those sequences, and especially from my point of view as well, are the characters and the sort of emotions driving them, following through the ideas and the environment that they're taking place in, and the types of weapons that are being used, and the inventiveness of them. So it's definitely a big part of the show to kind of keep surprising you with unexpected, situations that you can kind of somehow slightly relate to. Obviously we had a series of hand-to-hand combat, in Gareth's first episode with the bar fight and the relentless kind of pursuit, and the fight with Len. I don't want to, again, I'm not sure where.
Yeah.
I don't want to give any spoilers, so I won't go into it too much, but, I had a sequence in my episode 4, which I loved sort of reading and interpreting from the page, and it was a sequence that takes place in an alleyway, and it follows through all the way to sort of the end of the episode, and I wanted it to just be a kind of breathless sequence that didn't let you go and didn't let you breathe until the credits. So I hope that when people get to that episode, they feel like they can't breathe.
Definitely. Now, my 15 minutes are almost up, but just one quick question before I go. There was such an amazing young cast with this show, but you also put yourself into one of the episodes as well. Tell us a little bit about what that was like on the other side of the camera.
I'm actually in it twice, technically. There's a scene midway in the show. It's hard to talk about it without giving away, but there's it's a sort of little nod to Dario Argento, actually, and Sam Raimi, who used to put themselves in the killer's hands. So that I play a potential killer's gloved hands in one of the shots in there. But then toward the end, there's a little mini cameo. I like to to do that in my movies for fun. Since I was a kid, we used to sort of act in our own movies terribly, and I guess I've carried that on. Save some budget trying to cast someone else.
Yeah. All right, mate. Well, I know my 15 minutes are up, so again, I'll just say congratulations and thank you so much for chatting to us tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much, and hope you guys all enjoy it out there.
We definitely will. Thanks, mate. We'll talk soon.
Cheers, Dave.
See ya. Bye.